Welcome back. Democratic lawmakers are demanding congressional investigations after a second migrant child died in U.S. custody this month. And now Secretary of Homeland Security Nielsen says she's going to visit the border this week to check on medical screenings and conditions at Border Patrol stations. I want to bring in MSNBC's Jacob Soboroff. Jacob, of course, has been reporting on the plight of migrant families since the administration's new policies were put into place earlier this year. Also with us, Betsy, Woodruff, politics reporter at the Daily Beast and an MSNBC contributor. Jacob, I'm going to start with you. Want to bring up a tweet that you put out recently. 8-year-old boy who died Christmas Eve in Border Patrol custody, held with dad in the field for 3 hours. And you went through the timeline. You ticked through the timeline of what this boy went through. Obviously, it took a couple of days till they figured out that this boy was extremely ill. What's going on here, Jacob?
Well, it's either that, Yasmin, or he got extremely ill in Border Patrol custody. And I mean, I think that that's sort of the key element of this that we have to talk about when we talk about this young boy, Felipe Gomez Alonso. And I do think Associated Press just put out a picture of this young boy. This is the first time we're actually seeing his face. And it makes you sick, honestly, to think about that not one but two little children have died in the custody of U.S. Customs and Border Protection over the course of the last 17 or 18 days, 3 weeks, basically. And they say that no child had died in the custody of the Border Patrol over the course of the last 10 years. Back to the rule that I was saying that was violated in holding this young boy for that amount of time, the 18th of December until Christmas Eve when he ultimately died. Nobody, children or otherwise, are supposed to be held in Border Patrol processing stations that are well known to be unsanitary, dangerous environments for people to stay in for longer than 72 hours. So the idea that this boy spent nearly a week jumping between multiple Border Patrol processing stations and ultimately he became sick is actually not surprising at all. It should have us talking about why he was there for so long, and the answer is Trump administration policies put this young boy, Felipe Gomez Alonso, in a situation where he and his father decided to cross in between ports of entry, present themselves to seek asylum. And we well know that it's very difficult for people to seek asylum right now in the legal way that historically people have used.
You know, Jacob, because you've been covering the story for quite some time, it is surprising to me that it has taken them so long to figure out that they need to change sort of the medical screening process that they have for these children, especially considering the family separation policy that was going on back in late spring, early spring time. And we were hearing about children getting sick back then in detention centers and nothing was done. Is it surprising to you that it has taken them so long to figure out that something needs to change? And do you think that they even have the resources and the know-how to change things?
Yeah, it's shocking, frankly, and it's shocking because the conditions in Border Patrol processing stations are not new. They're not even new to the Trump administration. What's new is this aggressive deterrence policy that leads to dangerous crossings, that leads ultimately to death of children. But that cycle has played out since the Clinton administration when they put into place this policy prevention through deterrence in 1994 that was meant to funnel people through more dangerous areas to keep them away from coming into the United States. It doesn't work. It didn't work then. It doesn't work now. And so that the idea that only because two little kids died over the course of 17 days, they're now sending a so-called border medical surge, in the words of the Secretary of Homeland Security, is pretty preposterous because, of course, it's a tragedy that these two children died, but it was preventable and predictable based on the fact that we knew what these facilities were like all along.
Let me read part of Nielsen's statement from last night. She said smugglers, traffickers, and their own parents put these minors at risk by embarking on the dangerous and arduous journey north. This crisis is exacerbated by the increase in persons who are entering our custody suffering from severe respiratory illnesses or exhibit some other illness upon apprehension. Betsy, to me, this sounds as if Nielsen is really just passing the buck.
That certainly is the subtext of her comment there. And while it is factually correct that the journey that many of these families undertake to try to reach the United States is extraordinarily dangerous, it's also true that the facilities in which they're held when they get here often are unsafe and deeply uncomfortable. Migrants use the term hieleras to refer to the Customs and Border Protection holding rooms where many of them are held. Hielera basically means icebox in Spanish. These rooms are incredibly cold. People are sometimes issued just those aluminum foil looking blankets. There have been cases of people saying the only food they received in these heel eras was an instant noodle soup without access to a microwave to heat the water that those dried noodles in the soup were put in. These are really miserable conditions for people, and especially for young children. So it should come as no surprise that people who've taken the health risks of traveling through Central America and Mexico to the United States would be vulnerable to potential sickness once they're put in facilities like this one. Another thing that's important to remember when Nielsen talks about the danger of undertaking this journey is that the federal government under this administration has actually prosecuted at least one aid worker and a United States citizen who tried to help migrants get to safety after illegally entering the United States. You know, that worker is associated with a group called No More Deaths that operates in Arizona, and they essentially leave out water, food, and other goods in parts of the United States where migrants entering the U.S. are likely to find it, who may be, for instance, at risk of injury or death due to exposure, malnutrition, lack of access to water. And this organization actually documented Border Patrol officers destroying some of the goods that they left for these migrants to have access to. So for Nielsen to act like it's solely migrants' responsibility for them that they face danger when they're traveling to the United States really obfuscates the full story.
And of course, now making the announcement that a visit will be made to the border, not necessarily knowing when exactly that is going to happen from Kirstjen Nielsen. Jacob Soboroff, Betsy Woodruff, thank you both. Appreciate it, guys.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.